in fear.
The station. There's a few skeletons in my closet, and one of them is begging to be let out. He's screaming at me because I threw away the key all those years ago. I'm expecting another child in a few weeks. Her name is Ophelia. I couldn't believe it when I saw the ultrasound for the first time. However, today is the day I own up to what I did, or more specifically what I ran from in cowardice. I still question whether or not I could have saved those people if having my kids was worth the price of their lives. I'll never know whether a man like me could have everything right. After all, it was my dreams that saved me and my dreams that haunt me still. 16 years ago, in 2008, my girlfriend Anna and I decided to take a trip across America to visit Seattle. Both of us were so busy with our jobs that we took some time off to enjoy each other's company for a week or so. Instead of taking the plane, we took a train at Blue Creek Station. It was this historic building that savored the heat of the sun and the voices of a distant crowd. Occasionally the brickwood lost its grasp and breathed scattered dust. Its gigantic size reminded you of a time more grandiose than you could ever truly imagine. Of course, I wasn't the one to pick it. Anna did some research online, and while it was less modern than most stations near us, there was this attractiveness to it and that went unexplained. She's also heavily into historical backgrounds, so needless to say, it was a done deal. If only I could have said no. When the bus dropped us off at the station, I was definitely anxious, staring at the large clock that towered above me. But being with Anna calmed most of my nerves. As we blended with the groups of mysterious folk, I could tell Anna was excited, and she pulled me along to an array of portraits detailing every decade of Blue Creek Station. In each photo, some kid could be seen beaming their teeth as they got to ride on the train for the first time. They went as far back as 1908. They even had a copy of a magazine from 1912, the headline reading, "Titanic sinks 4 hours after hitting iceberg. A double six rescued by Carpathia, probably 1250 Paris. Ismay safe, miss. Astor Mavie, noted names missing." I could tell that this station had seen everything. Its eyes glued to the world like paper in a journal. Even the dim lights hanging over our heads shone with its resilient force, never letting go until the last flicker. Strangely, I noticed that the conductor in the very first picture was also in another. The first in 1908, but the second in 1959. He wasn't old either. He looked exactly the same, except his wardrobe was different and he had grown a beard. I thought that maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me, and as I looked longer, the resemblance became less and less apparent. "Hey, Anna, do you think they're father and son?" I asked, pointing at both portraits. "They look like twins, but yeah, I think so maybe. I'm not so sure anymore." Her reaction gave me worry, adding to the anxiety I felt before I even entered the building. There was definitely something strange, but I couldn't place my finger on it yet. The intercom blasted away. "Starling Anna. Vampire 133, now boarding." The miscellaneous conversation grew more dense as the intercom fell asleep again. "Hey, that's us. Are you ready to go?" she replied happily. "Definitely, just let me take a photo before we do." I nodded, and she reached into her handbag for a small silver camera. It was the same camera I gave her for Christmas 3 years ago. It always warmed my heart to see her use it. She stepped back so that every portrait was in frame, and a small flash followed her movements. She glanced down for a moment, slid the camera back into her handbag, and grabbed my hand, signaling that she was finally ready. As we boarded, it became clear that the train was equally as old as the station was, going through multiple paint jobs and retexturing. Even the seats were outfitted to be more modern and welcoming. "Where do you want to sit, Thomas?" Anna asked. I pointed towards a snug corner near the bar, with a perfect view of the outside. We sat down, placed our luggage on the rack above us, and waited until the train took its first breath, hissing and howling until the wheels designed to roll along the tracks. Anna reached into the luggage and pulled out a book titled "Everything You Need to Know About the Blue Creek Station." No, you didn't, I stated. Yes, I did, she replied back confidently. You're gonna make it read it with you, aren't you? Yes, I am. Her smile was now more obvious. A few hours later, I found myself drawing on her shoulder like a 4-year-old who got rocked to sleep. Fortunately for me, she was asleep too, and my jacket caught most of my shame. I took it off and stuffed it into my carry-on. The train was now more silent, and the sky washed over with my darkness like no dusk before it. My being awake was no good thing as I had been dealing with insomnia for most of my life. Anna helped me with some of it, but for the rest, I had to take prescription medication. At this point, I could tell when I had to take it, and tonight was one of those nights. I stood up with a pill bottle in my hand, stumbling over to the bar and caught the attention of the bartender. Could I have a glass of water, please? Rough sleeper, he asked, reaching for the glass. As he poured, I let out my thoughts. Yeah, I have never seen the best at it. Once I'm asleep, though, I have gotta go worry about dreams and nightmares. Never been the best at that either. When he handed the water over, I gave a thumbs up and took a pill as I drank. He soon spoke to me, and I noticed that he had some sort of Romanian accent. I thought it strange but paid no mind as his voice brought me comfort. Don't speak ill of dreams, my friend. They reveal truth unknown or seemingly trivial to the waking mind. Even the darkest nightmares have merit. Unlike many of the souls in this house, you are gifted with God's eyes and the devil's potential chaos. That's incredibly profound. I'm guessing you are not from here. I questioned, taken aback by someone who sounded so wise. Well, my name is Vlad, and I came from across the sea. I moved here decades ago after seeing how lovely America is compared to my home. Well, glad to meet you, Vlad. I'm Thomas. I'm with my girlfriend Anna over there. I nodded my head toward her, who was still knocked out cold. A grin broke out across his face, his eyes now more visible as a gust of wind soared his long, black hair back. You are in love? I stupidly answered his question, somehow not finding the man suspicious as his eyes twisted with delight. Yes, very much so. I'm hoping to get married to her in the next year or so. He went silent for a few seconds, then whispered under his breath, maybe that happened if the sun rises for you once more. The sentence broke me out of my comfort, and all I could say was, sure, Vlad, sure. I went back to my seat and rested my head upon Anna's warm shoulder, meeting eyes with the bartender who still stared in my direction. Before I drifted off into the sleep, I noticed that smile never left his face, frozen and crooked like that of a wild animal who hadn't eaten in days. When I awoke, my head was pounding. I felt like I was hungover after a heavy Tuesday night of alcohol and endless partying. I struggled to balance myself, waving my hand over a beam of light. Anna, I called out, but she didn't answer. In fact, she wasn't there at all. Nobody was around. On top of that, the train grained this newborn shine as if the years never rusted it away. I stood up slowly and the carpet struck to my feet, looking reddish brown instead of being like I remembered it. I called out once more, Anna, honey, Anna, honey, please tell me this was one big prank. Again, nobody answered. I peered upward and our things were gone too, replaced by a stray jacket and ripped bowler hat. If that wasn't strange enough, the hangover wearing off made me notice that the train wasn't moving whatsoever. It had been stopped in the middle of a dense, blinding forest. Only the lights on the train illuminated the area surrounding me. All of the doors had been opened as well, the one closest to me torn up as if a beast wanted to get through. As I maneuvered around the empty seats, I knew I was right. Claws marked the door, pulling away to the steel skin. Just as wind crept into the train, my worry did too. Anna was a strong woman. She knew how to fight because of her father, but that wasn't enough to dissuade my feelings. If something happened to her, why am I still here? I pondered. Suddenly, a harsh wailing exploded from within the forest. violating my ears with instant panic. Before I knew it, I was taking off into the forest, using the moon's shy glow as my torch. The, the wailing continued, my symphony of pain and suffering that grew by the second. I'm coming, hold! I'm coming, hold on! I yelled, hoping I could make it in time. There was no thinking, no moment to breathe, only the raw energy carrying me forward with each step. The forest seemed to go on for miles until I reached a wide clearing of grass-burnt cloth. A large fire smoked and hissed, the same way the train did on departure, except this fire danced, following my movement. I couldn't find the source of the screaming, even the fire showing me more than what I was originally able to see. Then the rain started, the water dousing the dancing limbs fire, drenching my shirt with melancholy. Still I walked inward, brushing my palm against the tall grass as I searched for answers. As I grew closer to the center, a storm brewed with a disturbed passion. The rain grew louder and louder until nothing else could be heard. Then the lightning started, revealing the foggy sky. I reached down towards one of the burned pieces of cloth, rubbing my fingers into a chest pocket that held a wallet. It read, Morgan David Walsh, birth date 7/13/1883. My heart sank, made creeper by the off-putting smile of Morgan Walsh, who hadn't known of the world I came from. I tried to make it make sense. Maybe it was a prank or I was dreaming, a dream too real, but the vividness of the freezing weather on my skin made that void. I'd gone back in time, I was sure of it. Checking more papers in his wallet, I learned that I would gone back to 1918, 10 years after the grand opening of Blue Creek Station, 90 years exactly before I arrived. I thought it couldn't get any worse, but I was wrong. As I sat on my knees, fruitlessly analyzing the contents of the cloth, the wailing continued. I began to sprint again until I heard another in the opposite direction. There were two, then three, and then four, and eventually the forest was another haunting core. It sounded like how I imagined hell would be. The screaming mixed and boiled until converging at the point, a tall ancient tree just beyond my sight. Maniac as I was, I braved the storm, triggering through taller grass, deeper mud with hands that stuck onto my ankles, and an overwhelming mountain of assorted cloths, a grim message I didn't want to understand. I closed my eyes, letting my hands guide my body, and when I didn't feel anything, I opened them. The rain stopped, the filth returned to its normal state, and the core is scattered away by a whimper. I started at the silhouette of the tree, desperate for something. My heavy breathing seemed to be the only thing that filled the space. I waited for 5 minutes, and as I began to turn around, lightning struck the air above, granting me my sacred answer. It looked like someone was on it, yet I couldn't quite tell. And the lightning struck again, queening the queer as I laid my gaze on a most horrific scene. Impaled upon the tree, all 64 passengers hung either dead or dying, dressed in blood and their own intestines. Pale, yellow-eyed creatures all over like wolves, tearing away at their flesh with ease. I froze, disgusted, and halfway prepared to vomit into the mud beneath my feet. It was sick, it was cruel, and it was impossible. How do you describe something so unbelievably fucked? We must have missed one, a mysterious voice murmured. I freaked out, turning around right into the chest of as one of the creatures who retained an air of humanity in his physical appearance. He had me backed into the ground, legs twisted and arms weak from holding me up. He smiled softly, showcasing a set of elongated canines and mustard pupils. I kept looking at him and immediately remembered who he was. It was Vlad. He still sported long hair and curled mustaches that reached cheek to cheek. The only difference was that he was drenched in blood more than rain and wore a coat expertly crafted for a bartender. Vlad? I shakily asked. You know me? One of you bootlicking sheep actually knows me. Oh, I'm surprised. How do you figure out the little fact? Oh, you told me. I told you? Are you sure about that? I nodded, barely able to register what was happening. As interesting as that seems to be, my family is looking for some dessert after supper. My family is looking for some dessert after supper. I doubt you brought cake to our little feast. He stared at me with that same look he gave before I fell asleep. I crooked a smile exposing his teeth and one mindless thought of ripping my spine out of my back to use as a dining table. His entire body went still, his head bent like the arrows of a ticking clock. Breaking the silence, he said, "You should run." I jumped up and taking off into another sprint as the thunderstorm continued, twirling above my head. The open field again spiraled into a blood ocean. My navigation slowly depended on my need to escape. Behind me, I heard as the grass and trees cracked, followed by multiple bouts of laughter. They tracked me all the way back into the forest, occasionally leaping to catch me and missing over so slightly. I wasn't going to make it. I couldn't make it. And even if I did, the train wouldn't be enough to protect me from my fate. The only regret was that I couldn't see Anna for the one last time. Then they caught me, pinning me against a rock in a significantly smaller clearing. The foot on my back felt like it could crush my bones within a second. Vlad spoke again, but he wasn't the one who caught me. I could hear him a little farther away. "I have to say, you are quite the runner. I know that got your blood pumping." He pulled my head back, which caused me to let out a grisly scream. Like the foot, his strength was far grander than you had ever believed. A sound of snipping lingered around my neck, and out the corner of my eye his teeth were out of once more. "Speaking of blood, I wonder how much is in you." His face stretched out, morphing and turning paler until he looked just the rest. Then he snapped his head back, finally plugging his teeth right into my exposed neck. But I didn't feel anything. He stood back, bewildered, his form returning. Even his henchman let me go. As I rotated my body to face him, I could tell he knew what happened. "You are not free here, are you?" My eyes teared up, my words slurred but direct. "No, I'm not from here. This was supposed to be a dream. This is a dream." But Vlad didn't answer. He just stood, looking at me with curiosity and fear. Interested, and he bent down, wiping a falling tear with his fingernail, and whispered. I woke up again. The train was still moving as the forest brushed past, and Anna was all right, looking straight at me. "What's wrong?" I asked. "You were crying in your sleep. You have never done that before." "Crying? Why would I be?" Then I saw him leaning over the counter that deadly looked to accompany a slaughter. The fangs that beat 1,000 men, the eyes that will stare into 1,000 more, and my haziness of memory became nothing but a brief respite from a night of true fear. "Let's go, we need to go," I warned, stumbling to stand up and fighting with our bags. "What are you talking about? We have barely reached North Dakota." I didn't answer, only stopping to look at Vlad, who was now serving people at the bar. "Thomas, talk to me. What's going on?" I stopped, grabbing her arms gently, and said, "I need you to trust me just this once. If we don't leave this train, we'll definitely regret it. You're the one person on this earth that I will look crazy for it if that means spending another day with you. Okay?" She awkwardly smiled, confused but content. I gave her the respective bags, escorting her through each row, imagining the blood-soaked carpet and the torn open doors. We waited 10 minutes, and eventually the train stopped at one of the few substations where normally nobody would end their trip. The doors opened. We stepped outside, and just like the dream, rain fell and a storm answered its call. Anna and I walked downstairs and across the parking lot, following directions from a sign that said Roster, Ambient 5 miles away. "It's a lot of walking, babe. Are you sure it was a good idea to leave the train?" Anna questioned. I looked back at the moving train and said it was the best one. Not long after I said that, still a few miles away from the nearest town, a familiar voice ranged through my head, clearer than my own thoughts. Your abilities are too precious to waste. Leave so that I may never see you again. Anna and I ended up spending our 2 weeks in Roster and a few other towns in Minnesota. Now we're close to Seattle like we planned. I never told her about my dream or the century-old bartender. But a year later, we did hear about Blue Creek Station and the infamous Vampire 133 train. The headline read, 50 missing passengers aboard 133, Northern States Police find no answers, Blue Creek stations to undergo further questioning. It confirmed my suspicions at least, that it was real. That what I saw was a glimpse into the past, turning me into the witness of a decennial tradition. Unfortunately, the bars dried out and everyone began to act as though it never happened. Nothing that serious ever goes unnoticed, and yet it did. My mind races back to that day. If I hadn't made it out and increased the missing to 52, or if I had gone completely insane and drove everyone out of the train, possibly saving a lot of loved ones, would that have even helped? Many questions go unanswered when it comes to Blue Creek Station. But now I'm 36 and too scared to ever visit that place again. Hopefully my kids never figure out that Anna and I were there, or that they wake up one night and find out they're not in the time they're supposed to be. An update: the kids found Anna's photo.